At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's gonna do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is The Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show, every day covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide, reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine,
Virginia Tech.
Tucson.
Aurora.
Fort Hood. Oak Creek.
Newtown.
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 How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
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 Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Oh, train wreck. Train wreck. And we're not talking about the movie. We're talking about last night's disastrous GOP debate on CNBC. Good morning. And welcome to the morning after, as we're all still trying to recover from the nightmare, the 2-hour nightmare that we saw last night. I'm Igor Volsky from Think Progress, filling in for Bill Press. I yesterday was sitting in this chair and expressed so much optimism about what this debate could be like, all the policy, all the economic details, and I thought, maybe if they just get into the details of some of these plans, get into the nitty-gritty of some of the proposals, we could have a real conversation about Republican priorities, entitlement reform, deficit, debt reduction. I mean, these are real conversations that conservative voters want to have, that they've been demanding from their leaders for the last 8 years. For how do we undo Obamacare? What do we do on immigration? Is there anything we can do about mental health? I mean, they're all about fixing our mental health care system because of the guns problem.
I have to say, your optimism.
But my optimism,
adorable.
Thank you. I'm very young.
Yeah.
Very naive, clearly. As we discovered, and it started even before the debate. You had a walkthrough, as they often do in big events like this. The RNC provided a walkthrough for all of the campaigns, showing them where they're going to have their dressing rooms, where they're going to get ready. And it turns out that while the candidates at the very top of the list, Marco Rubio was there, Ben Carson, Donald Trump, had the biggest rooms. They had theaters, they had kind of nice chairs and tables, that some of the candidates at the bottom were literally in a bathroom. They had a room, and the biggest thing in the room was a bathroom. Carly Fiorina's room had a jacuzzi in it. And so they raised hell. They got him switched. And little did we know that it wasn't going to get any better. It wasn't going to get any better for them. And now it turns out, after these 2 hours, the RNC is furious at CNBC, absolutely mad that the questions that were asked were just, frankly, a lot of them garbage, absolute garbage. We'll get into all of it. Let me first, though, introduce the Bill Press team here. Of course, you have Peter Ogburn here with me in the studio.
Hi, Mr. Volsky.
Good morning.
Good morning to you, sir.
Jamie Benson, who pulled all of this wonderful audio you're going to be hearing. Ray Rogers screening your calls. Good morning. And Cyprian Bolding running our video camera so that you could see us on youtube.com/TawkrTV, on Dish TV, on Direct TV, of course, your favorite progressive radio station. You might be listening to us on those radio apps, the iHeart app, the TuneIn app, using the Progressive Voices channel. We thank you very much. We'll be dissecting the 2 hours of hell
so
we
much,
lived
man.
through. And by the way, want to hear your take at 866-55-PRESS,
Can I say, by the way,
866-557-7377.
It was longer than 2 hours. It did actually go longer than 2 hours. Because, first of all, they started late for the 8 o'clock
I forgot
debate.
to mention that. The debate was supposed to start at 8 and it was supposed to go to 10, right?
Yeah.
Those were the terms Donald Trump worked out with CNBC.
And then, it went a little after 10 and whatever, and they said, we're going to come back with closing arguments, and then they came back. And
with
then
more
They
questions.
did more questions. I was like, no, I'm done. That was when I clocked out. I felt like I'd been lied to. I felt like
Deceived.
I'd been used.
Felt bewildered.
Confused.
Confused.
All of this. I mean, it was sort of a mess.
Look, let me say this. I think what we're going to hear coming out of this debate, first of all, it's not going to change any hearts and minds. No one's going to have kind of a big moment, I don't think. But the conversation after the debate was all about Ted Cruz. We talked about him on the show yesterday. He believes, and his campaign really hopes, that he's able to consolidate the conservative vote, take some of the voters away from Rand Paul, some of the other conservatives who haven't caught fire, and become the conservative candidate in the Republican Party against the establishment. And he had a big moment last night. This is what you saw replayed right after the debate and the morning after. You'll see it all over TV today. He went after the media. It's very close, Peter, to what Newt Gingrich did
there were a lot
in
of Newt moments
2012.
up
A
there.
lot of Newt moments. Now, ask President Gingrich how that worked out exactly. But at least it generates some early buzz. It gives probably going to lead to a fundraising boom for his campaign, and it's going to put him on the map. Here is his big moment. He says he's had enough with these CNBC questions.
This is not a cage match. And you look at the questions. Donald Trump, are you a comic book villain? Ben Carson, can you do math? John Kasich, will you insult two people over here? Marco Rubio, why don't you resign? Jeb Bush, why have your numbers fallen? How about talking about the substantive issues people care about?
I mean, I agree with that. I think a lot of those questions, from the opening question about what's your greatest weakness to things like, Rubio, you've been in a mad rush to build your political career. Why don't you just leave the Senate? Or John Kasich, who do you think who's lying here on stage? I mean, there's really no place for that in an economic debate on a network that talks about the economy, when all of these candidates say that the economy and fixing the deficit is the reason they're running for president. And you only have 2 hours with 10 people, and that's what you do? You get them to fight with each other?
But look, I disagree with you a little bit in the sense that, they didn't ask Donald Trump if he was a comic book villain. They asked him, they said, you're sort of running a comic book of a campaign, right? Like, this is what people think campaigns look like. They didn't ask Ben Carson, can you do math? They said, this is your stated tax plan. How in the world does this add up? Because it doesn't add up. He's talked about this whole tithing, this tax plan based on tithing of 10% a couple of times, and it's garbage. It's pure garbage. And they asked him about that. They go, how is this going to add up? They didn't ask if he could do math. So Ted Cruz, I look, I think there were plenty of questions at the debate last night that didn't belong in the debate. But for Ted Cruz to get all hot and bothered about them asking someone who has a legitimately insane tax plan, how does this tax plan add up? I don't think that's any kind of gotcha question.
No, the tax plan question was very fair and probably one of the most substantive questions of the night, where they asked him, at 10%, Dr. Carson, you're leaving a revenue hole of about, what was it, $2 trillion? What are you going to do? And he says, and his answer, by the way, this is a guy at the top of the GOP polls. His answer is, well, it'd be closer to 15. What does that mean?
He just made that up on the spot.
Closer to 15.
He just made that up on the spot.
And she said, even with 15, you're left with about 1.7, 1.1.
Yeah.
What do you do? And he said, don't worry, it's going to work.
Yeah.
It's going to work.
It's a Donald Trump answer. We'll make it work.
Mike from Anchorage, what is that, Alaska? Alaska, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Yeah, it was I thought it was a terrible debate, and here's why. They didn't challenge the candidates on any of the facts. They didn't say, excuse me, the $18 trillion deficit was created during the George W. Bush administration, who cooked the books for 8 years. Medicaid actually operates at a 2 to 3% overhead, where the average insurance company operates at about 10 to 20% overhead. They also didn't challenge him on the fact that the Iran-Contra deal, the Iran deal, was actually a good deal and negotiated for a long period of time, and we got other nations to back it. So it was void of any kind of challenge from the moderators on the facts.
And the crazy, and the crazy thing, Mike, was when they did challenge, for instance, Trump on the Zuckerberg comment, where the moderator asked Trump, "Why did you say that Marco Rubio was Mark Zuckerberg's favorite senator?" Trump said, "I never said that." And then Becky, the moderator, immediately apologized. "Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And of course, he did say it. It's all over his website. And we saw that multiple times where they would confront them with a fact. And it's like they hadn't done their research. They weren't ready. They weren't exactly sure if those were the facts. And so then they backed off. And it really showed the weakness of not really being ready for this kind of thing, not really knowing the intricacies and not being able to hold your ground when these candidates try to push back.
My takeaway from that was that they hadn't prepared for the fact that they were going to get lied to. But like
have they not seen the first two debates, right?
This is how these things work. There were two answers that came out of the mouths of most people on the stage last night. They either lied, which Donald Trump did repeatedly, Ben Carson did repeatedly, or they just bashed the moderators. And I'm not quite as hard on the moderators as you are. I think that there was a lot that they could have done better. But I do think that they gave them some real questions to chew on that they just dodged or flat out lied about. I don't know how they think they're going to get away with this, but they will. I think they will.
Davis from Radford, Virginia. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. What I want to say is one of the main themes that they have for wanting to cut programs is saying that there's already all of these programs in force where you, like for Planned Parenthood, where they're saying, well, we don't need Planned Parenthood. We've got all of these programs are already there. And Carly, who is a cancer victim herself, or not victim, but a survivor herself, wants to take away all of this screening and testing that women who couldn't afford it would be able to get, and they won't be able to find it anywhere else. It's similar to Ronald Reagan. He took all this funding away from mental institutions because he said, we already have all these places where they can be treated. So that meant that thousands of people with mental problems were turned out in the street.
Yeah, that's a great point, Davis. That really about Fiorina really irks me. That not only does she want to defund the Planned Parenthood clinics, but she also wants to, of course, as they all do, eliminate Obamacare. And as a cancer survivor herself, who, by the way, had millions of dollars thankfully for her, to treat her cancer, and now it looks like she's in remission, for her to take that away from other Americans, or to even, I mean, she'll never get to do it, but just to talk about it, I think is really quite something. And it was the case during her Senate bid with Barbara Boxer, and now that she's on the scene running, I mean, people who have had serious health scares, who've used the healthcare system and have had access to that system because they've had a lot of money and don't worry about paying the bills after they get better. The fact that they don't allow that same kind of opportunity to everyday Americans really, really irks me, because when you have contact with the healthcare system in that kind of a serious way, you should know better, frankly, because it's not rhetoric anymore. It becomes real. But I have to say, the big winner, I tweeted this at the time, the big winner at last night's debate, Obamacare.
Yeah.
It wasn't really mentioned.
Didn't come up.
It was not even a side issue. A couple of the candidates said, maybe we'll repeal it, but that's pretty much it.
Let me ask you this. After last night's debate, who do you think, I don't want to ask who you think won the debate, but who do you think should get out of the debate? Because I think my takeaway from last night was there were too many damn people up there. There were just too many people.
10 people, 2 hours.
It's too many. It's too many. I think it's time for some people to just sort of cut their losses and walk away.
Well, let's ask that 866-55-PRESS. Who should leave? There's a lot of names here. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a long list. I really think, first of all, I think ideally what should happen is you should have 2 different debates with 5 people each, randomly chosen, so that you kind of you have some diversity and you have a smaller stage of candidates. I think that should happen, and I think the damn cable network should get out of the business of hosting these debates. They should all be on network or on CNBC, and you should get some moderators who want to ask know what they're talking about and want to ask some real questions. But I'll put one name out there, and I want to hear from folks out there who should join the list. Let's start the list together here with Mike Huckabee.
Gotta go.
This guy has no traction. This guy really has no message. The only thing I remember from him last night is he wants to cure cancer, which is great.
Yeah.
Which is a great platform.
He wants to sell books.
Of course.
That's what Mike Huckabee wants to do.
Yeah.
That's why he's still in this thing.
Yeah. Mike Huckabee. There are others, but I'm not going to say them. Let's start with Huckabee. Let's go from there. Let's play one more clip here. I think this is the other highlight of the night. When we were here yesterday, we heard a lot about Jeb Bush, that this has to be a big moment for Jeb. His fundraisers have been having some worries about why isn't he popping? He has all this money, but he's not resonating. He's in single digits. And so he used the night to go after Marco Rubio's voting record in the Senate. Rubio, campaigning around the country, has missed a lot of votes. And Jeb Bush confronted Rubio in a moment that started well for him.
It did start well.
But ended very poorly.
When you signed up for this was a 6-year term, and you should be showing up to work. I mean, literally, the Senate, what is it, like a French work week? You get like 3 days where you have to show up?
But Marco Rubio was ready, and he fired back.
The only reason why you're doing it now is because we're running for the same position, and someone has convinced you that attacking me is going to help you.
And Jeb, in what I called a Tim Pawlenty moment, you'll remember in 2012 when Pawlenty wouldn't attack Mitt Romney directly at a debate and then immediately dropped out after because he looked so weak. Here, Jeb Bush just stood there, looked at Rubio, tried to
didn't have a thing to
say something.
In Politico's Playbook by Mike Allen, which is already out this morning, headline is Jeb looks dead. Here's the first paragraph from Playbook. If the Jeb Bush campaign dies, last night's debate was when it turned terminal. His disastrous effort to trap Marco Rubio wound up sealing his own fate, an exchange that crystallized how out of his depth Bush has found himself. One colleague said it looked like an aging fighter being jabbed by an up-and-comer. Matt Drudge tweeted as the curtain came down on the debate and likely the candidacy, quote, Jeb Bush can eat carbs now.
Oh, so are we really at this point in where are we? What month is this? In October, almost November of 2015.
Yeah.
Saying that Jeb Bush, the man with $100 million in the bank, can be added to the list. Huckabee, Jeb Bush, who else? 866-55-PRESS, 866-557 7377. Join the conversation as we continue to dissect last night's train wreck here on The Bill Press Show.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
27 minutes after the hour, we continue to perform the autopsy on last night's debate. Figure out exactly what killed us and them and everyone who watched that CNBC train wreck. And why CNBC? Why Fox News? Why CNN? Why any of them? Can't we come up with a better system to do this? A system that doesn't incentivize networks to pit candidate against candidate and actually talk about the issues that matter to voters? They think we want to see a cage match. We don't. We want to have a real discussion about the issues that are going to animate the next president's administration. God, we'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen? I forgive the police. But I'll stay radical. But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in this city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
Got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too. Amen. Earthalluia.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts. Stop the wrecks.
Maybe not as loud as Donald Trump, but he's a hell of a lot smarter. This is your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election, The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour. Pretty loud this morning, though, and pretty angry that we all have to sit through this effort by CNBC and the others to boost their ratings rather than have a real substantive conversation about the issues. Unbelievable. When are we going to get our act together? If these debates are the only way we're going to get exposed to these candidates, why are we outsourcing it to large media corporations where the incentives are all about ad time? I mean, Trump talked about this. He said at the very end, it was a lot of opposition getting the debate down to 2 hours. They wanted 3 hours because they wanted higher ad rates. And they were all very upset that they couldn't make more money. It shouldn't be about the money. We're picking our next leader.
You know, one of the things, though, I think would help cut through some of this BS is what I mentioned is less candidates up on stage, because you've got guys like Mike Huckabee and Rand Paul and Carly Fiorina last night who were just insufferable and interrupting and trying to, well, do I get to respond to that? I get to respond, right? Is it my and Ted Cruz at one point grandstanded on a totally different topic from the question he was asked and used up all of his time. And then when he decided he was actually going to answer the question he was asked, they were ready to move on. So he threw a little snit fit about that. And it's just like,
I was mentioned. Do I get a response?
Yeah.
What are the rules? What are the rules?
I'm sorry. You don't want to hear the answer to the question you asked? Do you not want to hear? Well, yeah, he did. It was when he asked you the question, and then you went off on a tangent about something else. Don't waste your time and everybody else's time with that nonsense. It's just like you lose 4 people off of that stage.
Well,
I think you lose 4 people off that stage.
Here we are trying to whittle down the field. We have Huckabee and we have Jeb. Here's our list. Ike, in North Charleston, South Carolina, who would you want to see off that debate stage when they're back at it in November?
Well, as a general rule, I'd like to see all the people that are looking to get a book deal or a job at Fox News to get the hell off the stage.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
That's
and
like
also,
half the field.
Yeah, and also, you know, Peter, you should have warned Bill. I tried doing the drinking game, but I quit real quick because I realized if I kept going, I was going to get alcohol poisoning. I hope somebody checked on Bill this morning.
Yeah.
Listen, one other thing. Leave it to the right-wingers out there to, and don't get me wrong. Yeah, I wanted CNBC to really drill down on economics. I want to know what
Right. Wouldn't that have been just the breath of fresh air?
That's what I was expecting. They should have done it, and they should have held their feet to the fire, particularly on this tax cut garbage they've been pushing for 30, 40 years now. But beyond that, you know what? I got a solution. Let's bring in the foreign press. Let's bring in people from The Economist or Rolling Stone or whatever and give it over to the print media and let them moderate one. And by the way, get rid of the audience. I don't want to hear a bunch of garbage and interruptions coming from the audience.
And booze and huge applause and the candidates being incentivized to play to that applause. I mean, the fact that you had, Ike, this is a great point. The fact that you had, I think, 3 different candidates, Rubio, Cruz, and probably Kasich, go after the media in that way, and the huge applause they got. I mean, it really says something there. But you bring up some of the folks, who want to get a book deal, but also some of the lies that were told as you were trying to play a drinking game there. I think the lie of the debate, and this is a tough race. This is a tough one to win. But I think the award for last night goes to Dr. Ben Carson when he was confronted about his relationship with Manatech, which is a nutritional supplement company that claims that they could cure autism and cancer. The company paid a $7 million settlement to settle a suit about deceptive practices. It's come under a lot of scrutiny because Ben Carson, a famed neurosurgeon, appeared in infomercials for Menatech. Here he is being asked, why did you do that?
It is absolutely absurd to say that I had any kind of a relationship with them.
To be fair, you were on the homepage of their website with the logo over your shoulder.
If somebody put me on their homepage, they did it without my permission.
Does that not speak to your vetting process or judgment in any way?
No, it speaks to the fact that I don't know that it's going on.
You know, it sounds like he kind of stumbled into Menatech, or Menatech in some way talked him into this. The truth is, he delivered paid speeches on behalf of Menatech and appeared in multiple promotional videos and consistently delivered glowing reviews about the drug on its website.
Yeah, he lied. That was a lie.
That was an outright lie. And really despicable from a medical doctor. Again, from a medical doctor, a world-famous, renowned brain surgeon, to stoop to this level. Robin from Pebble Beach, California. Good morning.
Hi, Igor. You guys have a great show. I'm a first-time caller.
Thank you.
Really nice to get in here. I want to tell you, CNBC, I had never seen it before. I cut the cable years ago, and I had to go yesterday. I found a website where they said, oh, if you go to CNBC Pro and sign up. So I thought, well, I don't want to get stuck and not be able to unsubscribe. So believe it or not, I paid $30 just to join for a month. And I found out what CNBC Pro is. It's only open during the market hours. It's only for wealthy people. It's sprinkled with BMW ads and a show called Greed. You can't watch any of the shows because you only paid $30. All you can watch is the stock market. And so I watched the debate on there, and it says "Your Money, Your Vote." That's their logo. And then after the debate, I don't think they had the same interviews that they had on the television, because they waited around and they got a hold of Trump and they talked to him for 10 minutes. Or maybe
right
15.
after the debate.
Okay, yeah, and he didn't even want to talk after 10, right? But suddenly he gets 10 more free minutes to say anything he wants, and this happens every single day all over the country for Trump. Whereas Bernie Sanders, who would like to overturn Citizens United and starve these people, just starve these networks, because suddenly they won't get all those millions of dollars. Think about it. They'll get a lot less money after Citizens United's overturned. So all are fighting it.
Yeah, Robin, one of the glaring kind of dynamics of the debate throughout was that you had CNBC anchors and economic financial experts, as they called them, who make, probably 5 figures on average, I would estimate, asking candidates who are worth millions about the economy. And you can just imagine what kind of prism all these questions came through. And yes, there was some mention of income inequality towards the end of this whole thing, but ultimately you had big general questions that frankly didn't touch on the very issues that not only the Republican conservative base cares about, but also Americans nationwide. And look, some of them, I think Rubio, I think Ted Cruz brought up the pay disparity between men and women. They talked about the great wealth and income gap that we've seen in this country that started back in the 70s and has been growing wider and wider ever since. Nobody really offered a solution, but more importantly, nobody was pushed to offer a specific solution, because the candidates and the anchors who spend their days covering the markets and not labor issues or these kinds of nut and bolt issues that folks really care about at the kitchen table, have no real background, have no real understanding, have no real interest in asking, why have wages stagnated? What exactly are you going to do? The most interesting moment on that front, and I don't think we have sound for this, is when Carly Fiorina, towards the end of the debate, suggested that the minimum wage could be unconstitutional. The federal minimum wage, which, by the way, Carly, is a question the Supreme Court had settled a long time ago, hinting that, maybe it's unconstitutional because we need to get the big government out of everything. And Rand Paul and Ted Cruz, and this drove me crazy, by the way, the whole conversation about Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, the entitlements that Republicans constantly want to cut. The idea that these programs are bankrupt and are at the edge of extinction is nuts. by the way. And the fact that the CNBC moderators didn't have either the knowledge or the foresight or the willingness to knock that down is amazing. Because let's be serious for a second. Social Security, totally sustainable until 2037. 2037. There's plenty of solutions for how to expand that trust fund even further. Bernie has a great one of just lifting the cap and bringing more money into the system. Medicare, paying out full benefits until 2030. Where else in politics do you have like a 15-year guarantee of a program being completely sustainable? And to them, it's in crisis, on the brink, on the edge of disaster. By the way, that Medicare expansion, thanks to Obamacare. You know, the fact that they ran in 2012 on entitlement reform, on the Paul Ryan budget, to partially privatize Medicare, to block grant Medicaid, which is, in other words, a huge cut to the Medicaid program. Huge
cut.
And they lost. And they said at the time that America has two different paths. Obama spending out of control and entitlement reform that will put our programs on a sustainable path. And America is at a crossroads, and America has to choose. And America chose in 2012, and they rejected your plan. And here you are, 2016 Republican candidates offering the same kind of garbage. And you know what else? You lie about it. You blatantly lie about it. 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377. Man, oh man, oh man. The third one has been worse, way worse than the first two, I say. We'll be back to talk about it more here on The Bill Press Show. Stay with us.
Like politics? Then like The Bill Press Show on Facebook. This is The Bill Press Show.
I am your toilet, so how do you do? I take away your wee and the odd number 2. For a quiet moment, I'll always be there, bringing you troubles. You don't even have to care. Oh, think about the things you put me through. Things you put me through that I've been through you. Stuff from your body I'll happily take. Liquid or solid, whatever you make. When you think of all the things that I do, it's time to say thanks to your Lou. If I wasn't there anymore, you can only imagine disaster. I am a lifesaver, and that is not a lie. Where I don't exist, thousands die. So next time you have to do a poo or a wee, thank the sanitary saints that you have me. When you think of all the things that I do, it's time to say thanks to your Lou. La 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 la. La 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 la. La 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 la. It's time to say thank you to your Lou.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To
not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
48 minutes after the hour of The Bill Press Show for this Thursday, October 29th, 2015. The morning after, we're trying to fill out who to cut from the next debate stage. We have Mike Huckabee, Jeb Bush, and everyone else who's positioning for a book deal.
I got to tell you, if I could throw another name onto that list, I don't want to steal any thunder from anybody. I think it's time for Rand Paul to go. Rand Paul looked silly up there last night. I mean, there was one point that he sort of threw a little fit because he didn't get a chance to respond to a question. Rand Paul has had no movement at all. I don't see any room for him to improve. I think he's got to go.
And one of the things that happened, and we talked about this yesterday, is Ted Cruz taking all of Rand Paul's thunder about the Fed and everything else and the Constitution and leaving Rand with really no room to maneuver
I mean, he
at
took
all.
credit for one of Rand's bills. I forgot what it was now, but he sort of said, like, we've got this legislation through. It was Rand's legislation. He brought it up before Rand did.
Helen from Ithaca, New York. Good morning, Helen. Who are we adding to the list of people to cut for the next debate?
All Republicans, please.
All Republicans. It's going to be an empty stage.
I want to compliment Igor and team. You guys, you got all these facts at your fingertips. You guys are doing a real good job.
Well, thank you.
Peter, Jamie,
Yeah, big applause for Jamie Benson, who cut all of our audio this morning.
What are you, the sweetest?
Ray, and the camera guy who's making you look good.
Cyprian.
The camera guy. Cyprian Balding.
So much love this morning.
I wanted to say that, before, we used to be a little slightly more enlightened nation. We used to have the League of Women Voters running this show,
Mm-hmm.
And now that we have corporate media, it's like the better of a Looney Tune, crazy, monster lunatic you are, that's great. You'll get, they'll get more viewers, and that's not the way, and I have a sense of humor, okay? That's why I listen to your show. I mean that.
I'm very funny.
I mean that as a compliment, not as an insult, okay? but this is a serious matter, okay? We're talking about, we still are the leaders of the world, actually. Well, China's coming up quick behind us, but I'm kind of a disobedient kind of person, and I don't like authoritarian regimes, So what we need to do is get this isn't entertainment. This is the future of democracy.
Yeah, and it needs to be treated that way, and I agree. And the crazy thing is, and I can't believe I'm going to say this. I can't believe I'm going to say this. But if you look at the 3 Republican debates, we had one hosted by Fox News. The second one, who did the second one, Peter?
CNN.
CNN, that's right, with Jake Tapper, CNN. Yeah. And then CNBC, this last
for the
one.
Republican debates, yeah.
And I have to say that the best debate and the best moderators were Fox News.
Yeah.
And Fox Business is next.
And Fox Business
for
is
the
next.
Republicans.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's pretty scary. I mean, it's pretty scary. Look.
But, Megyn Kelly tweeted last night a very good point when, after Becky Quick from CNBC asked that question of Trump's about the Rubio, the senator from Florida for Zuckerberg.
Yeah, Facebook.
I butchered that. But she didn't have a backup. She didn't have the data, the facts in front of her. And Megyn Kelly sort of tweeted out, this is why you do your prep. This is why you do your homework. This is why when he gives you a BS answer that is a total lie,
back.
You go, well, actually, Donald Trump's, on your website, this is what you say. It's up there right now. Because it is.
My friend is a producer for CNN and is the guy who's running all of their debates, all the prep for the debates, and kind of the head producer for it. And he says, you know what? Before our debate, I worked 7 days a week for 2 weeks.
I believe that.
Getting ready in meetings all day, figuring it out, because it's just that important. You have to be prepped for everything, absolutely everything. You have to know the issues inside and out. You have to know what the candidates say on the stump inside and out, because you have to be quick on your feet.
There was a very interesting thing that I think was a peek into how they prepped for this whole broadcast. The downtime between the JV debate and the big show, they had this desk of commentators who were just horrible.
It was embarrassing.
And nobody had anything to say. They didn't know what they were talking about. They had no direction at all. It looked like the Book of Revelations up there for this panel. It was just, there was like, somebody would be talking and another person would just be looking into the camera and like not saying anything. It is a mess.
A mess.
Oh boy.
All right, 53 minutes after the hour. We'll continue this. We'll figure it out. We'll get the field down to a reasonable size. We promise you here on the Bill Press Show. Stay with us.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
Came here to Foster City, where we're going to watch UC Berkeley, a University of California SWAT team, do a hostage rescue scenario.
Should I put the water in there now?
So this is like some kind of chemical agent?
Yeah. Copy, we're ready. I'm gonna get shot. I already know it, dude. Fiend's yelling at me.
Gentlemen, we have a chemical. We need to pull our person out. Get these guys out of here. Pull them out. Pull them out. Pull them out. Put your hands on your face. Put your hands on your face. Keep him covered.
Your head up. He's got a shotgun back there.
That's all right. Keep his hands up where we can.
Hands on your face.
Hands on your face. On your face.
Someone cover me. I got a holster up, dude.
Okay, pull him around the corner. Pick him up. Get him out of the building. Quickly. We've got this. Just get that guy out of there. You, come towards us. Keep your hands on your face. Turn around. Face away from us. Back towards us. Quickly. Back up towards me. Quickly, quickly, quickly. Pull him out of the room.
We're exfilling, Billy.
Yes, we are exfilling.
It was actually around 92, 94. There was an attack on the chancellor at his residence, which is on campus. And we realized at the time that we didn't have any resources to deal with that kind of threat when it took place. So, and I think about 15 years before, they had some kind of semblance of a SWAT team. So they regenerated the idea of activating a SWAT team.
And then since then, you guys have kind of branched out to doing what kind of stuff?
Well, since then, we train for everything. We train for every eventuality, barricaded subjects. Like I said, most of what we do is high-risk warrants.
And it's something like it could be like a mugging kind of thing, just like on the street.
Depends.
Or
I mean,
like
a mugging, but if it's armed, particularly.
Right, an armed mugging.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. And then obviously we're looking for training for anything else. That we might be faced with. And that's what's great about Urban Shield is we couldn't duplicate this on our own.
We're into the process, the autopsy, figuring out where it all went off the rails, why it went so wrong. Because look, before every debate, leading up to the main event, the RNC or the DNC or whoever it is, set up ground rules. I mean, sure, they don't know what the questions are going to be, but they agree to this stuff. They decide how many candidates are going to be on stage. They decide what order the candidates are going to be positioned in, how many moderators. And they really screwed this one up. They really did. And, you know, after the fact, Reince Priebus, the GOP chair, went out there and said it was a mess. And you know what? CNBC's to blame, but so is he. He agreed to this mess. That's what he got. Ridiculous. Ridiculous that this is democracy in America in 2015. We deserve better.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people have lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. I've been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we took 4 pay cuts, and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got. A lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough. They adapt. But only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not going to let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're going to fight to the bitter end. Detroit going to survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Recovering this morning, the morning after, the third Republican presidential debate. And if we know anything, we really know two things. It's that we want fewer candidates on the stage and we want more real questions. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Bill Press Show for this Thursday, October 29th, 2015. My name is Igor Volsky from Think Progress. We're here figuring it out, trying to understand what went wrong, why it went off the rails, and also, of course, get into some of the winners, some of the losers from last night. Couldn't do it without the great Bill Press Show team here this morning. Peter Ogburn, good morning.
Happy to be here, Igor.
Jamie
Thank you for doing
Benson, hello.
I am wide awake.
Oh. Some of us aren't.
That felt like a subtweet in my direction.
No. We've got the Dunkin' Donuts this morning. It's
we do have the Dunkin'
Donuts. The secret to a good post-debate morning.
I think it's, every time that there's a debate, right, like you see shots on Twitter of different newsrooms and what they're having, like, catering in the newsroom, right? Like there's Chipotle's or like pizza.
Where is that? I need to go there.
What? Oh yeah, right. Like some people have.
Is nice.
Yeah, right. That'd be good. Our newsroom last night was catered by Jen. We just had Jen in our newsroom last night. That's it. That's what we had for dinner.
That's all you need.
Yeah,
that's all you need.
We're good.
That's all you need for that.
We're in
debate.
good shape today.
Ray Rogers taking your calls at 866-55-PRESS, 866-557-7377, and of course Cyprian Bolding keeping us looking all so good on our video stream. We're going to get into the debate with the Washington Post's Rebecca Cinderbrand, but first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news, more like beat the Mets. Am I right?
Oh, you're right.
Last night was Game 2 of the World Series. Kansas City Royals and the New York Mets. Again, another game in Kansas City, and this one was not as exciting as Game 1. It didn't go 14 innings, and it wasn't filled with as many thrills, chills, and spills, but it did see Kansas City utterly destroying the Mets last night. 7-1.
My newly adopted team, the Mets. I forgot.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, man.
Kansas City showing up, man. It turns out that fastball hitters are better than fastball throwers. 7-1 was the final score. They're up 2-0.
Will we ever recover?
I mean,
can we make a comeback?
It's a tough hole to be in.
Oh, my goodness.
Igor,
now I'm even more depressed this morning.
Igor, how do you feel about that loss?
I'm lost. I'm bewildered.
Hey, how about this? China this morning, early breaking news. China's ruling Communist Party will lift the 3-decade-old one-child policy.
This is a big deal.
It's been in place for over 30 years, and they say if you're a family, you can only have one child because of the population control. But they say no more. You can have 2 children now if you live in China.
Up to 2.
Up to 2.
Up to 2.
No more than 2. They're limiting it 2 for now, but they're going to let you have more kids. So
wow.
That's pretty interesting, right? It's wild.
It's great news.
Yeah.
Sort of.
I think it's good news. It's just kind of like...
There's still a cap, right?
Yeah, there's still a cap, which is odd.
Good news.
But, like, I mean, it's...
For a lot of families... in a culture that prioritizes boys, especially, this is
I grew
good
up
news.
knowing
Good news for women and
other
girls.
than this one-child policy.
Yeah.
So they're progressing. We talked about the most popular Halloween costumes, a couple of different studies, a couple of different surveys, but here's one from Google. They use their sort of search data to see what the biggest most searched for costumes are for Halloween, which is coming up this weekend. Nationwide, number 1 is...
Bobby Jindal, no.
Harley Quinn from Batman, the Batman series. She's one of the...
The movie's not even out yet.
Well, that's the thing.
It's going to be a while.
Like, people like Harley Quinn in the comic books, but she's going to have a big part in this movie.
It's tremendously troubling
Do you know who it is?
that it's the most popular costume. I don't know who that
Number
is.
2, Star Wars.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just general
Star Wars.
General Star Wars. Anything from Star Wars.
Number 3 is just superhero. Number 4 is pirate. And number 5 is Batman.
All right, we're a country looking for a hero. That's what I'm learning.
The
We're
takeaway.
a country looking for... I need a hero.
That's the takeaway. That's it.
Well, we got a hero on the phone this morning. Up early here at 7-Eleven. Rebecca Cinderbrand, political news editor at The Washington Post. Rebecca, welcome to the program. Thank you so much for being with us.
Well, thanks for having me.
Let me get your first thoughts here, your immediate takeaway from this debate. We all thought, it was a mess, really, both for the candidates, most of them, and for the moderators, and for the RNC. How did you feel?
This is interesting because it's one of those debates where, a lot of times you'll see the experts, you'll see ordinary people watching the debate, and sometimes it feels like they're watching different debates. Last night, immediately, everyone had the same 2 or 3 takeaways. On Twitter, it seemed as though people were watching some sort of an accident unfold. Jeb Bush had the aura of dead man walking about him in a way that, people who've been on the trail with him have seen for some time, but last night just really brought into sharp relief for a lot of people.
Do you think the problem was that the moderators, the 3 moderators there, just weren't prepared? I mean, the fact that the candidates would say something, would challenge their question. The premise of the question was correct. It'd be challenged. The moderators would immediately walk it back and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I mean, that was just strange to me. And the fact that they couldn't control who was talking when.
Yeah, I mean, you hesitate to throw stones. I worked for CNN for many years, and so I know how difficult it is to put on a good debate. But you could see the strain last night. You're absolutely right. It seemed as though, whether they were or not, the moderators gave the impression of people who weren't prepared for what the candidates were going to do, and they should have expected it. The ghost of Newt Gingrich was on stage from the moment the debate began, and that's what they should have expected. A lot of those people had to score points, and they did.
How far did that take Newt Gingrich, by the way? Or should say President Gingrich?
It got him a crossfire gig. Got him a crossfire gig.
Everyone's saying, the strategy, Jeb Bush's strategy of lose the primary to win the general is so far looking about 50% effective. And, if you kind of reverse that, you can lose the general, but Ted Cruz sure knows how to win a primary, or at least to score points on stage.
Yeah. So we're entering Cruzovember. In a couple of days, where it's all going to be about Ted Cruz and the newfound momentum that he may have found in this debate through his attacks on the media. But I have to say, and I very rarely have anything positive to say about Ted Cruz, really, I think it's admirable, Rebecca, that on the eve of the debate, he released his tax plan because he really wanted to have something to point to at the CNBC economic debate, which was supposed to be about economic policy. And after the debate, I saw him on Hannity, and he was touting that plan and saying, here's what I'm going to do. It's a simple, I think it's a 10% plan, 10% tax he has across the board or something like that. At least that, right? At least there, he's now transforming into someone who built his career and his momentum on rhetoric, on political rhetoric, and moving now towards the realm of ideals, almost as if he's getting ready to be a real candidate, a real conservative alternative to whoever the establishment candidate becomes. Do you think that's the dynamic we're entering?
Well, Ted Cruz has been running a long-game campaign from the very beginning. His team has said all along, they're pacing themselves, and they've laid out a path for them that runs for several months into the future. They're the first campaign to actually set up a Virgin Islands team looking for a delegate chase down the line. So he's someone who's actually been looking ahead and thinking about what he has to do, the boxes he has to check in a very almost clinical way. And you've seen that in several interviews this week. He may seem like a guy who goes up by the seat of his pants and flies up. He's not. He's thinking very methodically. And this is an example of that. Last night, you probably expected to hear a couple of questions that didn't come up. We didn't hear people speaking at length about Wall Street reform. And you have to think that the viewers of CNBC, some of them have an interest in what happens on Wall Street, so that was kind of an interesting omission. But Ted Cruz is one of those candidates who came prepared to play in that sandbox and to talk about what he wanted to do with the economy and business, and not everyone on that stage looked as prepared.
Did it surprise you that the question of Obamacare, which dominated the 2012 debates, and Republicans at that time said that that's the reason the economy was slow going, that this cycle, it's not coming up at all, and that this economic debate, it was barely mentioned?
Right, and that's been one of the interesting things this year. It's not as though Obamacare is suddenly winning popularity contests with Republican primary voters. But it's not the kind of reflexive, the first boogeyman that candidates are turning to on the trail as an applause line. And it's not necessarily the line that gets the biggest applause at these campaign rallies. So it's not so much that the hate has gone away. It's that maybe some of the passion has died down, and people are, whether they know it or not, settling into a sort of grudging acceptance, at least at the moment, of the political realities around them.
And I guess part of the change in dynamic is that they're running against each other at this point, certainly, but also against Hillary Clinton and not against Obama and Obamacare. It's not so much a referendum anymore on Obama's accomplishments as it is, at this point, I feel like, an effort to figure out who can appeal to the most conservative elements. I asked yesterday who, the amazing distinction that Ben Carson has been able to make and eclipse Trump in some of these early polls by saying crazier things than Trump about the Holocaust and guns and slavery and all
in
that.
a very calm and reasonable way.
Of course, of
It
course.
it's like, the voice is very soothing. We were noting last night.
It almost felt like Ted Cruz, with his lines about the media and going after the media, was trying to find even more space slightly to the right, or at least in the same ballpark as Carson and Trump, to appeal to that very animated conservative base. And I think while the number of people who are actually really excited about those Holocaust comments in the Republican base is small, and I want to know if you agree with me, but their outsized kind of impact is a lot larger because they're the ones who are the loudest and the most animated in this race.
Oh, a couple of things there. First off, it's interesting to note that the 90s seem a very long time ago. If anyone would have predicted that Hillary Clinton would not be getting hit by conservatives, Republicans on health care policy heading in the primary season, no one would have taken that bet a year or two ago, but that's what's happening. I think, when with Ted Cruz, absolutely he's looking to consolidate, and he's spoken about exactly what he's trying to do and has been a very savvy analyst of the electorate that he's trying to reach. He's talked about the evangelical lane. He's talked about the social conservative lane. He's talked about the Tea Party lane. And lately he's been saying they're kind of merging into this one block, and he's been adjusting his message as he needs to. For Ben Carson, I think it's interesting to note, he's the guy who all along the other candidates have struggled to figure out how they take him on. His numbers have been rising, and the other candidates haven't been hitting him the way that they would normally take on a front runner. It's almost Teflon Ben. But it's interesting to note in all of the polls, you see, one of the latest polls this week even that had Carson taking the lead. Donald Trump supporters, a majority of them say their minds are made up. They're with their guy to the end. 80% of Ben Carson's supporters in a poll this week said they could still change their minds, and they're not sure yet. So it's one of those mile-wide, inch-deep bases of support at this point.
And Ted Cruz is certainly hoping that some of those Ben Carson folks will come over his way, will boost his numbers. He really feels like he's in it for the long term. And so if he's the conservative nominee here, as we talk about the primary, who do you think will rise on the establishment side? It looks like Rubio had a good night as well.
Oh, absolutely. And Rubio seemed prepared to fight. It looked kind of like, one of the analysts who was watching the debate with us said, it looked kind of like an aging fighter on stage with a young one, and just kind of, with Bush and Rubio when that moment happened. Bush made the attack, talking about the Senate votes, that Rubio was going to be most prepared for, and he handled it very skillfully. The thing with Rubio, and he did perhaps turn in the best performance of anyone in the establishment lane, you could say, last night of the debate, is, you look at his campaign fundraising, which has been pretty impressive. Small dollar donors, he's not doing well at all. So it's unclear whether that means he's a good on paper candidate, where people think, hey, there's nothing to dislike about this guy, but they just don't feel passionately about him. It's not clear why it is that he hasn't taken hold yet. You usually say that people can't win a primary by process of elimination, and maybe Rubio can be the first guy to do that.
Oh, man. Well, we'll be watching. We'll have to see. It's still ultimately a wide open race. Any one of these guys can have a great night in the next debate in November, and we'll be having a whole different conversation, it feels like, because Republicans are really undecided at this point. Rebecca Cinderbrand, political news editor at The Washington Post, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts, but what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 25 minutes after the hour. During last night's debate, big news broke, but it didn't come from the debate stage. It came from George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia, where Bernie Sanders was holding a rally. And here's what he said.
The time is long overdue for us to remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Yeah, marijuana, which is classified in the same class as heroin and cocaine. There's been a long-term push by activists to decriminalize it. And you know what? If you're looking for differences between Hillary and Bernie, and I know Hillary has been running towards Bernie's side as quickly as humanly possible, this is it. And it's a big one. And when you talk about bringing young people to the polls and energizing the young vote, here is one way to do it. Rand Paul has kind of been flirting with the idea very loosely, but this is also going to be a challenge for Hillary Clinton, who early on in the campaign had a very bad answer for medical marijuana, has since said, all right, let's try it, and has been very hard to pin down, shall we say, on decriminalizing marijuana and following the model of Colorado and Washington and elsewhere. I think this is going to be a big deal. It's going to be a big deal in the Democratic primary, and it may even spread to the rest of the campaign. Bernie is taking a big step here. You'll remember in the first debate, the only debate we saw from the Democrats so far, he was asked about the drug question, and he didn't have a very good answer. He kind of like walked around it a bit. But here it looks like he made a big decision. And part of the reason why, and this is really smart too, he ties it to Black Lives Matter.
Yep.
He points out that even though African Americans and white people smoke marijuana at about the same rate, black people are 4 times as likely to be arrested. When we talk about mass incarceration, when we talk about the prison problem, when we talk about Black Lives Matter, and if you talk to Black Lives Matter activists, they say moves like this one could ease some of the tension, could ease some of the problems. He's taking a very big step
It's
here
huge.
for a candidate who struggled. You'll remember in the beginning of this campaign, struggled so hard with these questions, with these issues. Good for him. I'm Igor Volsky, sitting in for Bill Press. We'll be back.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power,
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
the canyon maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, The Bill Press Show for this Thursday, October 29th, 2015. Joined now by John Fortier, a political scientist at the Bipartisan Policy Center. You head up the Democracy Project, right?
Correct.
See, I know that because John and I appear on a different show together from time to time. We do a little on the left, on the right kind of thing, and I'm so happy you're here because when Peter was asking me, who do you want to book, who do you want to do post-debate, I immediately said you because no one else brings a reasoned, conservative perspective better than you, John. I know that firsthand. So let's see how well you do here.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Because you were dealt, I think are dealt a pretty difficult hand, let's just say, after last night. You had 10 candidates kind of squabbling with each other, with the network, going after the media. Let me just get your general reaction. How did you feel watching the debate? What were your major takeaways when it ended?
Well, when I look at the process of the debate, I do think that debate last night was really not pitched at a primary audience, a Republican primary audience, that is. I mean, Republicans are looking for the candidate that they want, and I think the debate last night, the moderators were looking for general election questions or more gotcha kind of factual questions that didn't really help them or the candidates sort of express their views. The hit in the media, I think, it's like shooting fish in a barrel for Republicans, so it wasn't hard for them to sort of push back and say, that's an unfair question, I don't have enough time. So I don't think it was the best run debate in the world. But look, I think that some things came out of it. I think narratives started to emerge. Usually I think the debate itself doesn't cause these things. They're all brewing. But you see, of course, Jeb Bush, everybody was expecting him to attack Marco Rubio. It happened. Didn't work very well. I think if
not for Jeb.
Marco Rubio.
Absolutely.
You saw John Kasich. I think Donald Trump actually gave the best analysis of it, sort of trying to break out of his nice to all the candidates mode and put himself as the most moderate or liberal candidate in the race. I'm not sure that's going to work in the polls, but he at least tried to distinguish himself from the sort of field of others who are in the establishment.
I want to ask you about that actually, if I could, because there is like among people outside of the GOP who see this Donald Trump and Ben Carson surge and staying power, frankly, because they've both been really close to the top, as a really, really bad thing. And Kasich is the first one to really get vocal and say, these guys are not qualified to be up here.
And let's play that, Jamie, from last night. Here's Kasich kind of really going after the folks who are looking at Trump and are looking at Carson, and he's saying to the party, hey, we got to elect somebody who can actually do the job.
We're just going to have a 10% tithe, and that's how we're going to fund the government? And we're going to just fix everything with waste, fraud, and abuse? Or that we're just going to be great? Or we're going to ship 10 million Americans or 10 million people out of this country, leaving their children here in this country and dividing families? Folks, we got to wake up. We cannot elect somebody that doesn't know how to do the job. You got to pick somebody who has experience, somebody that has the know-how, the discipline.
Do you think that kind of message, John, is going to resonate with the base?
Well, I think over time, some of it may. I'm not sure John Kasich is the right messenger for it. We certainly have seen in the past on both sides, both parties, a reconsideration as you get much closer to the vote. Right now, you can flirt with candidates who are less experienced, who really probably wouldn't have been in our conversation 6 months ago. That's Trump and Carson. But I do think as we get closer to the actual votes, the question of experience and is this a real candidate, can someone win, that becomes much more potent for voters. I just don't think John Kasich coming at them so strong, and frankly, the worry for him was that he was the candidate that Democrats liked the best, the one who had Medicaid expansion in his state, who had the same political consultant as John Huntsman, might really be running sort of against his own party. And I worry that he's opened himself up to that. He hasn't done as well as people had hoped. This was his chance to make this attack. We'll see if it pans out from the polls, but I think there's not a huge slice of the electorate who's going to go with him now. But over time, there's absolutely the possibility that people say, look, we like Donald Trump as a speaker, we like Ben Carson's positions on social issues, but we want somebody who's more traditional and has more experience and actually could win or be president.
There's really this fascinating divide. On the Democratic side, you have the base saying, we want someone electable. I mean, sure, Bernie Sanders gets us all excited and we're really into him and he says all the right things, but he's probably not going to win. So we're going to go with Hillary, and we're okay that she has to move in certain directions to shore up her support. We want to keep the White House. On the Republican side, at this point, I mean, you have them going with Trump and with Ben Carson and briefly with Carly Fiorina, and not even giving a second look to guys like Kasich and Jeb Bush, who have the experience, who have, a fairly good conservative record. I mean, forget Rick Perry and Scott Walker, who couldn't even cut it, had to drop out. Why do you think that is? What makes up for that difference between the two camps?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is Hillary Clinton herself, that she is this strong candidate, this establishment candidate. It's the one who's the strong favorite. So as much as there are some people who are flirting with a challenge from the left, there's most of the party is essentially happy with her. On the Republican side, there is no such person. Will somebody emerge? I think that's a question. And it's a real question because all of these candidates who we call more establishment are sitting at 10% or less in the polls. So they've got a long way to go. But I do think it's primarily because Hillary Clinton. You imagine a race without her in it. You would have a bigger race. You'd have many more people clamoring to be right on the positions. Experience would matter some, but I think you could imagine an alternative Democratic side that looked like the Republican side if Hillary Clinton were not in the race.
Yeah, that was my takeaway at the first debate, which will be driven home even more in this next debate when there were only 5 people up in the first debate. When we come back the next time, it'll be only 3. I just found myself going, is this really the best that the Democrats have? Is this really all that they have right now? Are these 5 people and 2 of them are clowns? Jim Webb and Lincoln Chafee. So I think you're right. Hillary, I think, scared the devil out of everybody that could possibly be running.
Well, we've been trying, John, to compile a little list for how to trim down for the next Republican debate, because you'll agree, 10 candidates is just too much. And it's hard for any moderator, even Anderson Cooper, who I think is the gold standard of debate moderation, to do it well. So let me put you on the spot. Here's who we have so far on our list of who needs to be cut. We have Mike Huckabee. I mean, balloon, what was he talking about? Barely got any time to speak. Apparently doesn't have any weaknesses. Ask his wife. Jeb Bush couldn't stand up to Marco Rubio. I think had a real Tim Pawlenty moment where he kind of gave a little attack and then backed down right away. Rand Paul, who is being asked, hey, buddy, focus on your Senate run, okay? This thing is over. Ted Cruz is taking your thunder. Who would you add to that list of trimming the field, of saying, you know what? It's not going to be you. You don't have the chops. You don't have the money. Step away so we can have a more reasonable discussion about the policies here in an actual debate where people can talk.
Well, I think your list is good, and of course you haven't even mentioned the sort of kids debate, the earlier debate with the other candidates who were not even on the stage in the later debate. Look, I again, looking at the field of more establishment candidates and less establishment candidates, clearly Ben Carson and Donald Trump are ahead in the polls, and Ted Cruz is sitting there, I think, in an interesting position, ready to move into that slot, especially, I think, from Ben Carson. If Ben Carson falters, which I think there's a good chance that there'll be some reconsideration of him over time, Ted Cruz is really prepared to take that sort of vote on. So those three.
Do you think we're entering Cruz-vember?
Cruz-vember.
Heard it here first.
Well, it's. I do think there's some signs pointing to Cruz doing better, whether it's in November or even later. I mean, sometimes these reconsiderations come really quite close to the end. But for Ted Cruz, who has money and an organization and experience that Ben Carson doesn't have, but still has that strong appeal to evangelical conservatives, I think that's helpful. You know, on your list, I look at Mike Huckabee and Rick Santorum as kind of the ghost of social conservatives past. You know, two candidates who did come out of nowhere to do quite well in the race by getting that social conservative vote. I don't think they're going to do that again, but Ted Cruz certainly could be the type of person who makes a rise like Huckabee and Santorum did before. And I think they should likely move out of those two should move out of the debate stage.
I was concerned that Mike Huckabee thought that Krispy Kreme donuts came in sacks. That I didn't understand. But let me ask you just very quickly, John. You study democracy all over the world. Are you concerned that we're outsourcing these debates to big media companies who are incentivized to sell ad times and get people to fight with each other?
Well, I've heard that some from party people too, as well, from Republican and especially Republican Party people saying, can't we control our own candidates? Can't we have some sense of who the top tier are? Although I think if you push them at the end of the day, do they really want to make that choice? Do they want to anger bits of their constituencies? I think it's too big. There are too many candidates. I'm hoping we're shrinking, and I think as we get closer, there's going to be not only the argument that there are too many people on stage, some will drop out, but that maybe there should be a debate that really is an even smaller, more focused debate. I think 6 or 7 candidates are legitimately on that stage at this point, but your list, I'm not. Maybe I don't have the whole of it, but I'm not sure Jeb Bush is ready to drop out of the race at this point. He still has a lot of money, a lot of experience.
That's
money.
The thing. The money is going to take.
But I think he's going to have to make that decision if it's not really going anywhere at some point. That's a decision he'll have to face.
The Jeb Bush thing is amazing because I can't think of the last time that a positive story came out about the Jeb Bush campaign. And I do honestly think that of all the people on the stage, Jeb Bush would probably make the best president out of the Republicans, but he's just a terrible candidate. He's just so bad at running for president.
Well, you look at him, too, that he came out with the possibility, like his brother, of uniting kind of more establishment left-leaning Republicans with a good part of the conservative base, and he really doesn't have that at all. Even amongst the other candidates we call establishment, Marco Rubio still has real strength in conservative movements and Tea Party people. He sort of straddles both camps. Jeb Bush's polling numbers don't look like that. He really just has the moderate liberal establishment, and unless he grows that, he's in trouble.
John Fortier of the Bipartisan Policy Center, sit right here. We're going to ask you about the new Congress and Paul Ryan. Right. Speaker Ryan, who would have ever thought? I'm Igor Volsky, sitting in for Bill Press. We'll be back right after this.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is the Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
John Fortier of the Bipartisan Policy Center here with us as we continue to talk about the debate and figuring out where it all went wrong. But switching gears a little bit, John, big day on Capitol Hill as Paul Ryan is nominated by the Republicans to be the next speaker. He's going to be elected today, I believe, as the Speaker of the House. And here he is, after that nomination, laying out his vision for how he's going to run the People's House.
This begins a new day in the House of Representatives. We think the country's headed in the wrong direction, and we have an obligation here in the People's House to do the people's business.
I'm old enough to remember, John, when someone named John Boehner became Speaker and promised to, quote, listen to the people who brought us here. Here's Paul Ryan making the same pledge, just as he said he's not going to do a vote on immigration. He's not going to bring up any contentious issues that Republicans don't all agree on to the floor. Do you think his speakership will really be that different from Boehner? He promised to turn a new page yesterday, but it looks like he's kind of working himself into a corner here.
Well, it's a difficult position for him in certain ways. I mean, I think on the one hand, he has come in with essentially the blessing of most of the party, knowing they needed someone else, knowing that no one else was of his stature.
The savior.
He also has had the tough vote taken away before he was. I mean, he had to vote on it, but he wasn't the speaker who pushed through the budget deal. One could argue that there isn't a lot that will be done in the next 18 months.
Probably a safe bet.
and that means that I think part of his role at this point is to be a spokesperson for the party. They're in opposition. The presidency is in the other hands. I think everybody knows that. But anytime you have to craft a deal to bring together all these coalitions in the Republican Party, especially the Tea Party right, it's a very difficult challenge. So I think he will face that eventually. But in some ways, I think, given where he is now, I don't think he's going to have as many flare-ups as John Boehner had regularly. We'll have to see next Congress. If there's a Republican president and he's the speaker, that's a really interesting position for him to be in, to sort of lead a new legislative agenda. But if there is a Democratic president, I think he's going to face the same kind of smaller majority, same kind of tensions. And this is somebody I think who's arguably the most respected Republican. A lot of people think well of him, but he's it's a difficult dynamic.
Do you think it's an impossible job now with those 40 Republicans, the Freedom Caucus, saying it's our way or the highway? We refuse to compromise on anything. Could anyone bridge the gap between those 40 and the rest of the party and actually govern?
I think it is difficult. I mean, I guess I really look to see what that would look like if they had a Republican president, because then the pressure's on. You talk a good game that you want a conservative platform, you want to push your own president to the right, but push comes shove, you have a president's agenda in front of you. You may come into line, and that's maybe not so bad a position for Paul Ryan to be in. I view this Congress as kind of a not a mop-up, but there'll be not as much to do, not as much conflict as there might be. But next Congress is the test, and if they're still in the opposition, there'll be frustration that there's a Democratic president, that things can't get done, and that means a more fractured caucus.
It's always challenging for me. They ran in 2012. Of course, he was on the VP ticket. They ran on his Medicare, his Medicaid policies, and they ultimately lost. I mean, they weren't able to sell those ideas to the American people. And here he is promising kind of a wonkier Congress. He's going to talk about real ideas. Presumably, he's going to try to get some of those concepts into law in some small way. But I don't know. I feel like ideas that have been rejected, why we're hearing them from the GOP candidates who all basically have the same Medicare and Medicaid approaches, and why we're going to hear them in the House yet again, I mean, who knows? We got to run, though. John Fortier of the Bipartisan Policy Center, thank you so much for being here. A real pleasure having you on. I'm Igor Volsky here for Bill Press. We'll continue with more on the other side of the break. Stay with us.
Like politics? Then like The Bill Press Show on Facebook. This is The Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like a bag?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
And I have a permit, which is very unusual in New York, a permit to carry. And I do carry on occasion, sometimes a lot, but I like to be unpredictable so that people don't know exactly. Unlike this country, by the way, unlike our country where we're totally predictable, and the enemy, whether it's ISIS or anybody else, they know exactly what we're doing because we have the wrong leadership.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Donald Trump at last night's debate being oh so very unpredictable. He, I think, is going to kill all of our enemies with his own gun that he carries in unpredictable ways.
Why are we not all freaking out about the fact that Donald Trump carries a gun?
I'm going to New York this weekend.
What is that?
You're going next weekend with your kids.
Yeah.
Donald Trump and his gun are going to be wandering the streets of New York, acting unpredictably. Let's just hope he doesn't.
Donald Trump carries a gun.
Listen, I just hope he doesn't walk into a Popeyes
organization.
A Popeyes
organization.
I think that's with his gun. Unbelievable. All right, we're back with Brad Woodhouse, president of Americans United for Change, and Correct the Record, right after this.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this, because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Pathetic, sad, makes you want to cry. That's just how some people have described last night's GOP debate. I mean, I've been in a rage for the last 2 hours because, frankly, I can't understand why CNBC or Fox or CNN or anyone else who's incentivized to sell ad dollars and to pit candidates against each other hosts these things. Why we can't come up with a different system with fewer candidates where we can talk about actual issues instead of he said this and now you can respond and who would you kick off and who's lying. I mean, all these guys have plans. They have ideas. Ask them about that. Telling you. Igor Volsky filling in here for Bill Press on this Thursday, October 29th, 2015, the morning after the debate. Peter Ogburn joining me here in the studio. Good morning,
Igor.
Peter.
Good to see you, buddy.
Jamie Benson running the board and pulling all the audio you're going to hear today.
We made it.
We made it.
Final hour of debate weekend.
Ray
It's
Rogers.
been a long morning, man.
She's taking your calls at 866-55-PRESS. Let us know what you think. Who did well, who didn't, who should we all collectively together push off that stage in November. And Cyprian Bolding running the video camera, keeping us looking good on youtube.com/TawkrTV. And joining us now in studio is Brad Woodhouse. He's the president of Americans United for Change and Correct the Record on Twitter, of course, at WoodhouseB.
Yes, follow me, please.
Great follow,
Thank
by
you,
the
I
way.
appreciate
I have
it.
to say, a great follow.
That is a big compliment coming from you.
There you
go. Well,
That
thank
is
you.
true. Thank you.
Well,
you are as well.
Well, there
are
you
as well.
go.
And
You're confirmed on Twitter, right?
I am not.
Oh, you're not.
I am not.
Oh, okay. Because I thought you were, and then Peter was the only one who wasn't.
You mean verified?
Verified.
Yeah. I am not verified. I have no earthly idea why I'm
We'll
not
work on
verified.
that.
You
Brad.
should be verified.
We will work on
I
that.
maintain that if anybody tries to give me verification, I'll turn it down.
You'll turn it down.
I will.
Because the
I'm in
cool
these
kids.
streets.
Like you would not take the nomination of your
That's
party.
Right. That's right. I don't want it.
Is this the?
I don't want it. I don't
You
want it.
You don't want to seem elite. You just
That's right.
want to be.
I'm in the streets.
In the
man.
streets.
I'm not verified. Don't
All right,
want it.
Brad. I know you watched the debate. Watched the debate with the rest of us, and we're gonna get
Oh, my God.
into all the details.
That was like watching a car wreck.
It really
I mean,
was,
it's
man.
like you don't want to see it, but you just can't,
turn
your
away.
head
Can't stop watching.
Can't stop watching.
You know, my favorite part is Larry Kudlow, who used to have a show on CNBC and now is a contributor there, still works there. Immediately after the debate, said, "Well, that didn't go exactly how I thought, but I thought it was pretty good." Just trying to put the best possible face because they know. I mean, they know they screwed this one up. We're going to get into all the details here, but first.
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Big news out of Fiat Chrysler earlier this week. They announced there's a major recall underway.
What?
They're recalling 86,000 Ram trucks and 93,000, almost 94,000 Jeep Cherokee SUVs for a couple of different safety reasons.
That's a lot of cars.
That's a lot of cars, man. That's a lot of cars. So they said that there's an issue with the Ram trucks because of the rear axle, that they weren't inspected properly, and they're having all kinds of problems with the rear axles. And then on the Cherokee, the axle shafts on some of those were not properly heat treated and could cause them to overheat and trigger the anti-lock brake system warning light, leading to component fracture and possible wheel separation.
Yikes.
You know, I think someone's going to be fired.
I would
that's
think
a lot.
so. That's a lot
of
man.
cars.
Yeah, that's a big mess up.
That's a lot of cars.
If you follow Broadway musicals, which I do not, but you know that one of the biggest hits there is Hamilton, right?
Yes,
Everybody seems
I want to
like
see Hamilton.
Yeah? All right. Well, here's a cool thing because a lot of people who want to see this can't see it because Broadway shows cost a ton of money. So earlier this week, they announced that they have a new plan. The musical Hamilton has teamed up with the Rockefeller Foundation and has pledged $1.46 million to pay for 20,000 New York City 11th graders to go and see the movie.
That's so nice.
To go and see the movie Hamilton, and all it's going to cost them is a $10 bill or one Hamilton. Right?
Very nice.
Yeah. So for $10,
good.
they get to go and see this musical. It's going to start. It doesn't start actually until next year, April of next year, and then it's going to go all throughout the whole season. So it's a cool story.
I've heard nothing but positive press for this musical.
Well, look, here's the thing about musicals.
Yes, Peter. What is the thing about musicals?
Musicals are stupid. Musicals are just dumb in general. But
you mean because people don't actually run around singing?
Right. I can't suspend.
So you would feel the same way about opera?
I don't like opera, but that's also kind of I don't like the bastardization of telling a story through like cheesy music.
All right, listeners, tweet at Peter Ogburn
Dolly. Well,
all of your Broadway hate.
Dolly. It's so nice to have you back.
I'm just saying, right? So, but look, I'm gonna go see when I guess Hamilton is.
I guess.
Pretty cool. All right, to Canada we go. There is a hamburger chain called The Works up there. Right? I've never heard of this, but oh boy, I gotta tell you, I don't know how I feel about this burger that they're offering in time for Halloween. It is a Reese's peanut butter cup infused hamburger.
Ooh.
What it is they take a Reese's peanut butter cup and they put it inside the patty and sort of push it in there to where the center is just like molten chocolate and peanut butter, and they serve it up on a bun. It comes with, of course, bacon and crispy onion straws because, hey, what the hell, right? At this point, why stop?
Listen, I would try that. I would.
Not even
I
once.
like peanut butter on anything.
That literally makes me want to retch right now.
It sounds horrible,
I mean, it
right?
sounds absolutely
I'll have
horrible.
yours. That's fine.
Yeah,
There is such a thing as a peanut butter burger. It's an Oklahoma thing, right? Where they
Really?
put- it's peanut butter and then like white onion. And that's a thing there. I'm dead serious. It's one of these regional weird things.
We need to have
But
a
the addition
taste
of-
testing of that
The addition
here on
of
the
chocolate?
show.
No.
Yeah,
won't do
just can't.
I'll try it. I will try. I like chocolate. I like peanut butter. I like burger.
Yeah,
I like all those things too.
But I think I could like it together.
On different plates.
I think I could like it
You
together.
know what I'm talking about?
Open culinary mind right here. Right here. All right, 13 minutes after the hour. Brad Woodhouse at WoodhouseB on Twitter. Now, Brad, I am kind of tired of this because we hear these kinds of things in every Republican debate. We heard it from Newt Gingrich in 2012. The idea that the real problem out there is the media.
Oh, yeah.
And that you can score a lot of points going after it. Now, we played Ted Cruz earlier.
As you said earlier, as President Gingrich.
As President Gingrich will tell you,
That's
of
right.
course, who went on, of course, after his big media attack moment to host a show called Crossfire.
For a hot minute.
For a hot minute on CNN. Well, Rubio had his moment in the sun going after the media. Here he is claiming that the media has given Hillary a big pass. Did you know about this?
Oh, yeah.
A big pass going after the mainstream media, Marco Rubio.
You know, the Democrats have the ultimate super PAC. It's called the mainstream media, who every single day...
Oh, yeah. Oh, Hillary's just had
she's
easy
had it
time.
she's had it so easy.
Ran right through.
I mean, thank God nobody's ever reported about her emails. And no one's ever looked in, and reported about Benghazi. I mean, this is the biggest joke out there. I mean, first of all, the double standard that's existed in so much of the reporting. I don't want to get into the email issue, but I mean, almost everyone on that stage, and one that wasn't, Scott Walker, had all types of transparency issues that the press didn't care about, and they only exclusively focused on what they considered were issues of transparency of Secretary Clinton. Jeb Bush had a server. Jeb Bush had private email when he was governor. He refused to turn over all of them. He violated the law in not turning them over for 7.5 years, and you can't even get anyone to tweet about it, much less write about it. So, look, it's a great line for Rubio in that crowd. Incidentally, I think the constant crowd interruptions might make for good television, but they really lend to the chaos. I mean,
they're really unnecessary.
And that was the most chaotic debate. That there were literally at times 5 or 6 people talking at the same time.
And all trying to get in, all saying, I was mentioned, you have to give me time.
Yeah.
Did you feel, and I mean, I know, look, I think it's hard to do a good debate. It's even harder to do a good debate when there's 10 people on stage. But you had 3 moderators
Right.
there, all talking over each other. It was just the whole thing was a mess. They didn't have control over the stage.
One of the things that I found most disturbing was that the moderators didn't even have the confidence to take control. They allowed the people on stage to push back on them. I mean, and I think one of them, Betsy Quick, I think actually apologized to Donald Trump, and it turns out she was right.
She was 100%.
She had nothing. She had nothing to apologize for. And look, I think it is difficult. If you're not engaged in the political discussion every day, and they're not on CNBC, to then I think moderate a political debate. I think it's hard, but it was the most chaotic thing I've ever seen. But the truth is that some of it I think just falls on this field and on how many people they have on stage, because we had 5 people on stage at the Democratic debate in Nevada, and it was not chaotic. It was very orderly. I think a lot of people probably thought it was boring. It was extremely substantive, and the Republican debates have not been that. And last night was kind of the worst example of that.
So, Brad, we've been making a short list here over the last 2 hours of who to shove off the stage before the next debate, who doesn't deserve to be there. Here's who we have. I want you to add a name. We have Mike Huckabee, who was silent throughout most of the debate, made a joke about a blip and compared it to government, and it was a mess. We have Jeb Bush. We have Rand Paul. Who do you think in the next debate deserves to just step off?
Well, let's start with 4, the undercard.
See, for me, the undercard, and let's Jamie here play a bit of the star of the undercard debate, which is, of course, South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, who had, I think, another tremendous undercard night that nobody will notice, that nobody will talk about. But here he is
I'm not sure exactly what we have from him, but I think it's him with the drinking situation. Jamie, is that right?
Let's we have Barack Obama incompetent.
Yes.
We have the iPhone.
The iPhone. This was a good question where they asked the candidates, because what are you going to ask these guys? So they asked them, what apps do you use the most on your iPhone? And here's Lindsey Graham's answers.
Well, number one, the only reason I have an iPhone is because I gave my number to Donald Trump. Don't do that.
And the line of the night, he is a guy who's running on foreign policy, who wants a muscular foreign policy, who goes after the president every chance he gets, that he's not tough on ISIS, he's not hard enough. Of course, it's not the issue of the election, so it's hard for Lindsey Graham to break through. But still, he has great lines like this one. And here, he kind of the visual was he had a fist in one hand, he had an open hand in another, and he said the line of the night. Here it is.
So to the Chinese, when it comes to dealing with me, you got a clenched fist or an open hand. You pick. The party's over to all the dictators. Make me commander-in-chief and this crap stops.
That's right. This crap stops.
He's kind of channeling Donald Trump there,
Very much so.
but in a much more, I think, fun and accepting way. I say this: maybe one thing that should happen is that he should be added to the main. I
think
debate stage.
so.
And look, if part of this for the media, maybe unfortunately, is about ratings and viewers and buzz, then having somebody with, Lindsey Graham reminds me in his ability to debate in one-liners a little bit of Joe Biden from the Democratic debates, and in 2008 where he was affable and he had the one-liners and he had obviously enough experience in the Senate to be substantive, but Lindsey Graham is a trip.
But you got to give him credit because for all the one-liners, he is talking about real issues.
Right.
I mean, he has a certain worldview
He does.
for how to protect America. That means a very muscular approach, putting troops and boots on the ground in Syria, in Iraq, and securing that region in that way. And that's a real conversation.
It's a real conversation
America should have.
And if he was in the main debate stage, he more than anybody else on that stage would run circles around Trump and Carson and Fiorina and Kasich and Christie in particular and Bush. The only other ones that I think could maybe even compete would be Rubio and Paul and Cruz, partly because they've been in the Senate. But Lindsey Graham would be interesting to see him on the debate stage on a debate that was focused on those. On those
I would
issues.
way rather see Lindsey Graham up there than a Mike Huckabee.
Oh yes.
Or a Rand Paul.
Yeah.
Who really? Mike Huckabee's just in this for business, right?
Yeah.
Running for president is good for business.
And I
He's
think
selling books, and he's going to corral this into another TV gig.
I think the benefit of Graham is that he pushes all the main candidates on this issue because nobody wants to specifically lay out what the plan for ISIS really is.
Right.
And to hear, do you support troops on the ground? Do you support a more muscular American presence? Do you support a no-fly zone? I mean, maybe we'll have a foreign policy debate where we get into some of this, but Lindsey Graham can really bring some of those issues out. And as we learned from Bush, that's a big deal.
If Lindsey Graham is not on the stage for that debate, maybe they could let him ask some of the questions. Let him be one of the moderators.
All right, we're going to take a quick break, though. We'll be back more with Brad Woodhouse, president of Americans United for Change, and correct the record, more debate discussion coming up here on the Bill Press Show.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the area.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you go.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
26 minutes after the hour, the Bill Press Show continues here with Brad Woodhouse, president of Americans United for Change and Correct the Record. Brad, let me play some sound. This is really the key moment for the establishment candidates, the two Floridians on the stage, Jeb Bush and Marco Rubio.
This was so much fun.
This was something. Here's Jeb going after Marco.
When you signed up for this was a 6-year term, and you should be showing up to work. I mean, literally, the Senate, what is it, like a French work week? You get like 3 days where you have to show up?
Now, Marco, he was ready. He was prepared for this answer. Here's what he said.
The only reason why you're doing it now is because we're running for the same position, and someone has convinced you that attacking me is going to help you.
True.
Yeah, it's true. And it was, for Bush to do it, it came across as gratuitous. Rubio had gotten the question from the moderator, so the hit was out there. Yeah. And Jeb was not prepared for the comeback. And look, we went after this yesterday. I mean, we do think it's a vulnerability that for us, it's not so much that he misses votes, but it's just this idea that he hates the Senate.
Yeah.
And, you know, if he hates this job, wait till you become president. I mean,
It doesn't
Jesus
get any
Christ.
easier. It
Yeah,
definitely
it doesn't get any easier.
easier.
But you know, the right just doesn't want to hear this. I mean, I think it's probably better general election hit than anything else.
Brad Woodhouse, president of Americans United for Change and Correct the Record. Thank you so very
Thank
much.
you. I
By the
appreciate
way, at Woodhouse B
At Woodhouse
on
B.
Twitter. Give him a follow.
Yes. Follow.
I'm Igor Volsky from Think Progress. I'll see you on the other side of this break.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada! What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but what about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California.
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
Thank you.
the most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Yes, indeed it is. The Bill Press Show on this Thursday, October 29th, 2015. Igor Volsky of Think Progress sitting in for Bill Press. And joining me now, my good friend Amanda Turkle. She's the senior political reporter and politics managing editor over at something called the Huffington Post. I don't know. Have you heard of it?
Close, Igor.
Oh, it's Huffington. The Huffington Host. Huffington Host. Okay.
It's tough to pronounce.
It's a little hard. It's a little hard. At A Turkle on Twitter, and she is, by the way, another must follow. Amanda, thank you for coming in. I know it's early. I know you were up late last night eating a lot of candy to stay awake during that train wreck of a debate.
I mean, it's Halloween week. There's
You
going to
have
be a lot of candy.
There's no other option. Now, the moment that stood out to you, which we've discussed a bit here on the show, is a big moment for Ben Carson when he was confronted with commercials that he ran and participated in for a supplement that claims to cure autism and a whole host of other ailments, that had like a big settlement for false advertising. Here's that exchange between the moderator challenging Ben Carson. Why as a doctor are you shilling for this kind of crap?
It is absolutely absurd to say that I had any kind of a relationship with them.
To be fair, you were on the homepage of their website with the logo over your shoulder.
If somebody put me on their homepage, they did it without my permission.
Does that not speak to your vetting process or judgment in any way?
No, it speaks to the fact that I don't know that it's going to
Look at that audience.
See, they know.
I mean, Amanda, he's totally lying here.
He's completely wrong. So the moderator was actually quite nice. I mean, it's sketchy if any candidate had these ties to this dietary supplement company. But the fact that Ben Carson is supposed to be this brilliant doctor, and he said that he doesn't have ties to this company, but he still said, I mean, I really like their products. I use them myself. So, okay, so he did a PBS special where he mentioned these products and glyconutrients, as the secret ingredient is called. So he did a PBS special. He was sponsored by some sort of subsidiaries of Manitech. His mother actually appeared in a video with one of the founders of Manitech. And this was after this guy who was involved in the lawsuit for, making all sorts of crazy claims. He had left the company by then, but his mother also was in this on a website about how these supplements can help cure Alzheimer's and make her feel better. So his ties, he gave speeches, he was in these ads, he was on their website, and he has extensive involvement with this company. And I don't know, he claims that they used a lot of the materials without him knowing, but I find it hard to believe he didn't know. He also once claimed that he had one of those prestigious endowed chairs at Johns Hopkins Medical, which you get if you're very distinguished. And he said in his speech that Manitech donated $2.5 million to help him get that.
Wow.
His campaign later said he was wrong.
Oh, oops.
They didn't donate any money, but Ben Carson is very, very aware of this company.
Now, he's still on the website or no? Did they take him down?
They've taken down a lot after the press started calling, and I think the Carson campaign said, please take this down. But you still can find some of the videos that are up, including the one with his mother.
I mean, that is really astonishing. And talk about a judgment call.
Right.
Talk about cashing in.
The question about whether this shows if he's good at vetting and his judgment is an excellent question, and something his associate Armstrong Williams, who's his business manager, has actually said this was a great lesson for us because it shows we need to be more careful in vetting. So it was a great question by the CNBC moderator, but Ben Carson didn't really have to answer it because the audience booed it.
Do you think it's going to matter? Does it matter for the Republican primary voter that Ben Carson is involved in this kind of thing? I mean, aren't they all like pushing gold and all this kind of thing in the infomercials? I mean, half of the people who ran for president are thinking of running for president or ever ran for president have this kind of strange relationship with companies that predominantly advertise on conservative media and push not only gold, but, the doomsday scenario, a life kit that you need. Yes, the seeds. This kind of goes beyond just Carson. This is something that funds a lot of this conservative media.
Right. I think you are right because, I mean, these supplements are primarily marketed to evangelical Christians. But, I mean, I have to say one of the best articles about Ben Carson's involvement was on the National Review, which is obviously a very conservative outlet, and they called it, I think, a troubling connection. So there are people out there who are not really on board with this, but they may be people who would be skeptical of Carson to begin with anyway, too, because obviously not everyone in the Republican Party really wants him to be president.
Including, I would think, Mr. Paul Ryan, the GOP nominee for the speaker, who's probably going to be voted in as speaker today. Do you expect or predict or think that we'll see anything different from a Paul Ryan speakership? I mean, he promised to turn a new leaf from John Boehner, but yet at the same time, in order to win support from conservatives in the House, he said he'd never bring up immigration reform to the floor, that he's going to follow what's called the Hastert rule. That is, you don't vote on anything that a majority of your party doesn't agree with. So, I mean, is this going to be the same old, same old?
I mean, John Boehner also wanted to follow the Hastert rule, but if you want to get anything done, you can't really do that. I mean, I think John Boehner and Paul Ryan are a lot alike. I mean, John Boehner really wanted Paul Ryan to succeed him. When Kevin McCarthy was out, he essentially said it has to be Paul. So I think that maybe Paul Ryan might be a little bit savvier in how he presents himself to his caucus, because right now I think he cares a little bit more about how they perceive him. John Boehner, he was more at the end of his career. I think he was just fed up with it and fed up with the caucus, and he did what he needed to do so it didn't fall apart. But I think Paul Ryan is looking ahead a little more. It's very likely we will see him run for president at some point. So Paul Ryan, I think, will be maybe listen to the concerns of the caucus a little bit more. But fundamentally, you know, he makes deals too. He's made budget deals with Democrats. He believes in actually trying to get something done. So I don't think it will be that fundamentally different.
See, that's an interesting point. If you think that Paul Ryan is preparing to run for president, then of course the question is, what are his incentives as he thinks about his speakership? Does it make sense for him to try to cut deals like he did with Patty Murray to get a 2-year budget deal? Or is it in his best interest to just appeal to the right wing of the party to develop all of a sudden these very pure idealistic positions and do nothing at all until they agree and come to him and come to his side of the fence?
That's a great question, and it will in part depend, I think, where the party's going. But he can't look like he is just, you know, the class president for this crazy group of students that can't seem to get anything done. Paul Ryan, I do actually believe him when he was saying that he didn't completely want this job. He might have been a little more attracted to it than he seemed, but it's sort of a miserable job, and he could probably have sat back on his committee, done his thing. Everyone likes you when you're not in charge, as I think Hillary Clinton found very much when she was very popular when she wasn't running, and now that she's running, she's getting a lot more criticism. But you know, it's going to be a tricky dance for Paul Ryan. He is going to, I don't think the Freedom Caucus is really going to hold their fire for very long. Right now we're in a little bit of a honeymoon, but I don't expect that to last, because the problem with the Freedom Caucus and the Republican Party right now is it's sort of two groups, and it's not conservatives and moderates. It's Republicans who are interested in governing and Republicans who aren't. And that is very hard when you're in Congress and you're a speaker and trying to manage all this.
The Republicans who aren't interested in governing, you talk to them. What do they say the goal is? Is the goal to simply be included at the table? As many of them said, Boehner shut them out and Ryan promised a more open process. So do you, if they're part of the conversation and they don't get everything they want, will they still play ball?
That they want to be listened to, and that will be a big thing. If Paul Ryan can make them feel like they're being listened to, even if maybe what they want doesn't ultimately win, then I think he can help control them. So how willing they are going to be. But I think part of it is they felt like they've been sort of ignored pushed aside under John Boehner. He clearly doesn't really like them, and I think they feel
Even
more
though he helped elect a lot of them.
He did, and I think they feel a little more welcome and a little more liked under Paul Ryan. And he is part of sort of this new generation, and a lot of these members are a little bit younger. So, I mean, they do want to be listened to, but you can't have an entire caucus and with everyone giving a different idea and expect that you can somehow govern out of that. You have to come to some sort of consensus with a Democratic president. You are not going to get through the repeal of Obamacare. It's not going to happen right now.
Words of wisdom.
Exactly. So, I think Paul Ryan has to give these guys a seat at the table and make sure that they're being heard.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here with Amanda Turkle, senior political reporter and politics managing editor at the Huffington Post. Back right after this.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
He's not running for president, but he will shake hands and kiss babies. It's the Bill Press Show, your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election.
47 minutes after the hour, they'll have to change the Constitution to let me run for president. I'm Igor Volsky, born in the former Soviet Union. Here filling in for Bill Press, of course, with Amanda Turkle sitting right across from me. She's the senior political reporter and politics managing editor at the Huffington Post. Amanda, for me, the big news of last night wasn't necessarily the debate or Jeb Bush getting dressed down by Marco Rubio, but it was this announcement from Bernie Sanders speaking at a rally at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia, announcing a big policy change on marijuana.
The time is long overdue for us to remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
And he says, here's why we're doing it. It's not just about recreationally using marijuana. It goes to a much deeper issue about inequality in the American justice system.
Although about the same proportion of blacks and whites use marijuana, a black person is almost 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession than a white person.
Now, this is an issue, Amanda, that the activists behind Black Lives Matter really are trying to push, trying to get more of the candidates to come on board. Bernie's the first mainstream candidate, I believe, to hold this position. A, do you think it's any kind of game changer in the primary? And B, will this push Hillary Clinton to at least walk closer to that position, because she's been running towards Bernie and all kinds of things? Will this be the next one?
I don't think she'll go quite as far as Bernie did. I mean, Bernie went farther than a lot of other politicians who aren't running for president went. In terms of whether it's a game changer, probably not. I don't think we are going to see Bernie, shoot up in the polls that much. But what it does do is it does help, get the presidential candidates and reporters and the media talking about this, talking about something else that you haven't heard about as much. And it does help expand Bernie's appeal to minority voters, which is a group that he has had a lot of trouble with. When he was first confronted by Black Lives Matters at Netroots Nation, he didn't deal with it all that well. No. He got upset at them for interrupting him. And he said, look, I just want to talk about economic justice. I'm staying on what I was planning to speak about. That wasn't a great response. And he's gotten better as it goes along. And this sort of shows that he's listening more to their concerns and addressing them.
But what's interesting is the issue itself, it has been so misunderstood, especially by last night in the debate, right?
Yes.
John Kasich got the only question, and he was the only one that responded to the marijuana question because they were in Colorado, and he said that he didn't like the idea of children getting mixed up and being sent mixed messages about marijuana use, and then went on to mix up the message by saying when he was governor of Ohio, or as governor of Ohio, he has seen overdoses and families torn apart by drugs, which is, by the way, mixing up the message on pot use. No one has ever overdosed on pot. Full stop. Never happened. So it's like the way that Bernie is talking about it is also like a more informed, more real way that people who it's, in their lives in one way or the other, right? Like either friends smoke it or they smoke it or whatever, that they could talk, have someone who could talk about it in an informed way is a breath of fresh air.
And it's also, I think, the kind of evolution that we want to see candidates make. Bernie had a lot of trouble, as you point out, Amanda, with Black Lives Matter, and he has really thought through these issues and I think evolved in a very organic way. Unlike I think we've seen Hillary Clinton, who's evolved, but you kind of feel like it's because there's political pressure. Here, Bernie's saying, let's see what makes sense.
And with the debate last night, it's actually disappointing that Senator Rand Paul didn't jump in. I mean, he was barely on stage last night. But, this is something where he has actually talked about these sorts of issues in a more sort of introspective way. He brings up when he was a kid, sort of what he was able to get away with versus what would have happened if his skin was a different color. But, Rand Paul didn't really jump in at all last night. So that sort of perspective on criminal justice was completely lost.
Was Rand Paul up there last night?
I don't even know if he's still running.
He was busy.
Yeah, right.
I mean, let's just do quickly, I guess, kind of a look ahead, Amanda. Who do you think coming out of this debate, is there anyone who's going to see any kind of spike, any kind of surge? Are we going to have another Fiorina-like phenomenon with someone where it's just a couple of days and then they're gone? Or do things really stay the same moving forward now?
I mean, this isn't an especially original answer, but, Marco Rubio and Jeb Bush, I think, are the ones to watch. Marco Rubio had a good night. In a lot of the past debates, he's been pretty quiet. You haven't heard from him much. And he had a great night last night. And, he is an establishment candidate. Jeb Bush is really struggling. I think you're going to see Marco's team try to get a lot of Jeb's supporters and donors to go over to him. And so, this was a great night for Marco Rubio, and he's probably going to get a spike from it.
I think Rubio has a great team around him.
Mm-hmm.
He was ready for those questions. He had great answers to them, and he was on the ball, and you could tell he practiced that. And he did a very nice job, and I think that's a plus for staffing.
Jeb Bush just set it. I mean, it was just he set the trap for himself. He just, it was terrible.
Sad to watch.
It was horrible.
Sad to watch.
We could see that coming from a mile away. I was like, oh no.
Amanda Turkle, senior political reporter and politics managing editor at the Huffington Post. Thank you so very much.
Thank
Follow
you.
her on Twitter at Turkle. She's a great
Turkle.
A Turkle. What did I say? A Turkle. A Turkle. I'm Igor Volsky. We'll be back to wrap it all up after this.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay, so who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To not look the other way.
It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Oh, the Bill Press Show. Closing the lid on a big debate post-show where, the big question I have, well, two big questions. One is, will anybody watch CNBC after last night? Question number one. Question number two, when can we all just wise up and move this whole debate apparatus away from the cable? Look, it's going to be so much better, I promise you. They think you want to see lots of fighting and bickering because that's the only thing they show you. But if you actually do the issues that people care about, they will watch. People care. They really do. The substance matters. Content is king. Oh, maybe somebody will listen to me, right? Bill's back tomorrow. I'm Igor Wolski. Bye-bye.
This is the Bill Press Show.